What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the Apple TV Plus original series, Severance Season 2. This will follow Episode 5, which is called Trojan Horse, and is directed by Sam Donovan. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we have another fantastic episode of Severance in the books. This one is quite a lot going on, to be fairly honest. It's one of the more meatier kind of episodes that is not only trying to deal with the after effects of Irving B from the last episode, but is starting to pose the questions of what exactly is going on, especially in this season. It's also dealing with a lot of, is the reintegration going to be a good thing for Mark, as we see at the end of the episode? Maybe not. It's an episode that is trying to balance a lot of things, and I think it's one of the most successful episodes of the series just for that reason. This series is always hinged on the really epic nature of, can it hold the promise and premise that it's trying to aim for and the ambition that it's trying to aim for, and it does it in a very high speed fashion, but also allows moments to kind of slowly work in a lot of respects. It's really kind of it's pretty impressive, to be fairly honest, how they're able to give us so much mystery, but also give us so much passion and effort, and allow things that we've been wondering about to kind of play out. And it's a very well constructed episode with a lot of really interesting promises, and it delivers on all those promises. And I really appreciate that. And I really think that the writing staff, Dan Erickson, Ben Stiller, and all the crew have done a really pleasant job of just creating something uniquely fascinating in this season. And so Trojan Horse is the aftermath, but also a new kind of speed through as we get closer to the end of the season, because we only have 5 more episodes, so we're halfway through the season. And I think it's perfectly encapsulated how this season is structured, which is not to give us too much, but give us just enough to keep us our wet whistled, or whatever you want to call it. So how to break it down is, it's interesting that we open up to this scene of this guy just walking down the hallway that we don't see. And he walks into the O&D department, and he has the 2 ladies that are sitting there, and they open up this drawer, and it has utensils for dentistry or something of that nature. That's the one thing that is great about Severance and great about this show in general, is what does that even all mean? Is Miss Casey down there and she needs dental work? Is that what that is for? Because there's a whole bunch of these tools. Is that the whole idea of this person's working on the clones, or working on the other twins? I mean, it's something to think about, to be fairly honest. Who the heck knows? But it's a really unique thing, and he's whistling, and you never see the person's face, so who is that person? And I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to see if they actually make it down that elevator to see what's actually down there. So we'll see. We'll talk about the Irving B stuff. I think that's the most surprising thing I'm sure it's going to be for a lot of people, is Irving B was systematically killed off in a lot of respects. His innie was because of the situation of Wells Hollow. But what the implications of that is that Lumen can basically terminate and kill off whoever they want, and there's no repercussions to them, because the people in the outside world don't know. They're being lied to by Lumen. And as we see Irving, when he's at his house or his apartment, it's just that he's told a lie. He's told that he was fired for whatever reason, and therefore he removes the paintings of the elevator hallway, and he goes out to make a call. But who is he talking to? What is the person he's talking to? We don't know. It's not entirely explained. He's telling somebody something, but that is integral to what is going on. But who is he talking to? That's the question of the day. So I'm sure we'll find out. I'm sure it'll be some kind of big revelation that it maybe it's Ragabi. I mean, who the heck knows? But it's definitely going to be one of those things where it's going to affect the Lumen. It's going to affect the innies. And it's going to be really interesting thing to see. But the thing I appreciate about this with Irving, with John Turturro's character, is how authentic he is as an individual. His character feels so sad, so morose, so just kind of I don't know how to explain it. There's something sad about his character that really is shown very well. And John Turturro's always been a good actor and done some really interesting material. And so therefore watching him kind of try to deal with this situation is really fascinating. And then on top of that, he sees Bert in his car and he goes after him, and you think it's gonna be some like big showdown, it's gonna be like some big craziness, and what it boils down to is Bert is just as confused as Irving on why they were fired. But why was Bert fired? And he says because he had a sexual escapade, or they said he had a sexual escapade with another person. And because we've learned that, because he knows that Irving is of Lumen, they kind of figure out that maybe there was something between them. And of course, we learn about a character named Fields, who's the husband of Bert, which we'll see later on. But it's really fascinating. You think it's going to be like this big kind of crazy thing, and it's a very sweet moment between Bert and Irving. He invites Irving over to his house to kind of discuss the matter. Brings some red wine, very expensive red wine, which is a great thing. You know how they love expensive taste, but I love the fact that we had so much dramatic stuff in the last episode and leading up to that last episode that we get this small moment between two characters who have a history that they don't know about, and how are they going to work through that? What are we going to learn when Irving goes over to the house? And I really like that. I really like that they're willing to take small moments and take some time in a show that really is high concept and deal with a lot of mystery box stuff, that they're willing to just have this small moment between two characters and not make it over the top and not make it insane. It's just like, hey, come over and have dinner with us and we'll talk about it and we'll figure out what the problem is or what the situation is. And I love it. That's what makes this episode so special. That's what makes this series so special, is they're willing to just do those small moments, and it doesn't take away from everything else that's happening, but it really is a good blending, a good kind of balancing of the really high tech concepts that are really being presented. So therefore, I love that Irving. I love that Bert stuff. I think it's fantastic. And so with that said, it was really nice to see Mark and Dylan and then Helly, who's brought back into her innie, really confront Milchick on the nature of what they've done to Irving. Like, there is some fierceness to these characters. There is like, we're not putting up with this nonsense. What are you guys doing? You killed an individual. You are murderers. And Milchick is an individual that, you know, as we see throughout this entire episode, is struggling. Like, he's really having a hard time dealing with this nature, because we'll see in his review, we'll talk about that in a second, but he's having to deal with the simple fact of, like, he has to keep his employees in check, in line, but he also has to balance the fact that they are dealing with a loss, and there is some loss there with possibly Cobell, and the fact that he's now dealing with that situation, and the fact that, you know, Miss Huang is very forceful in how she acts, how she really goes against the grain, really kind of confronts Milchick about why are we giving them a funeral party from what they did. She is really kind of bold and mean-spirited when it comes to his review. There is like an underlying almost evilness to her character that really feels like she's trying to push Milchick out, but it's not to that point. She's kind of having to stage her coup in a lot of respects. So we'll see how that plays out, but I like that he relents and he gives them like a funeral party, and Miss Wong confronts him about that, but he's like, just do it, we'll do it, we'll get them settled so they'll go back to work and so on and so forth. And I like the fact that several times in this episode, Mark and Dylan and even Helly just like basically are like, you're the terrible person, like the BS Gazette, you know, what story is she gonna write for that, Ms. Wong, and how it's chaotic and disturb, you know, it's just like we're at our wits end and stuff like that. And then when Milchick gets on the elevator and goes, did you tell Helly R about how her Audi had sex with you and stuff like that? And there's so much like to boil up tension between the two. It's a really fascinating, really fun approach to these characters. And once again, Tramell Tillman is giving Emmy level performances here. Everybody else is giving great performances. I mean, that's a thing, but I think if he doesn't get an Emmy nomination for this role this year, I think it's going to be kind of a crime, because he's so good, especially in these later episodes, like last episode and this episode. There is a cadence that Tramell does. There is a there is a kind of underlining kind of uncomfortability to him, his kind of stoic but kind of menacing nature. It really is fun. And then watching him kind of struggle with the simple fact that the paintings and how he feels like he's being treated and how he's having to kind of confront and struggle between the two, and then having to deal with, the MDR and their situation, and like how they confront him, and then he takes them back to their office, and they've lost a desk, and so therefore it feels like they're being shafted and being abused and reused, and they confront him about that. I love what Zach Cherry does with Dylan's character and how he approaches that situation. It's just all around, everything about it is just absolutely fascinating and wonderful. And I really like the fact that, he relents, and they have the party, and it's very kind of weird, and as they all are, all these parties and kind of celebrations that Lumen has, because there's something off-putting about it. The fact they make a watermelon look like Irving's head and stuff like that, and the fact that they give a small speech, and the fact that it's just like it feels so inconsequential, and it feels so gaudy and a little disrespectful for Irving B, who was very passionate about his job. But the nature of how it slowly is starting to unravel for this MDR group and all that good stuff, it's a really interesting thing, and it's really kind of cool. And when you get to the review of Milchick, and to watch that, how Milchick just feels very out of place, and he feels very like he's being kind of attacked, because he asked Felicia like about the paintings, and she doesn't really react to it and stuff like that. And then Mr. Drummond's like, is probably going to take 2 to 6 hours, so we're gonna have lunch, and Milchick's like, I hope it doesn't. And then he hands them, very there is a level of like, roughness to the Mr. Drummond, and kind of like how they approach their people, and how insincere and kind of forceful they are. And he hands the lunch, and here's the menu and stuff like that. And then they talk about how he's very good at being there and working, but he has had problems, and he needs to get checked out and settled and fixed. And watching Milchick just deal with this, and kind of how he feels like he's being attacked, and it just he decides he's going to tighten up everything. And there is just a level of menace to Drummond in this Lumen group, and how like really kind of evil they can come off, and just like menacing and stuff like that. And it plays out later on when Milchick confronts Mark on the elevator, to the enigmatic nature of Milchick. I think there's going to be something that finally comes to a head with him. Either it happens in this season or the next season, when there's a third season or whatever happens, where we're going to see Milchick come to a head. Is he going to side with the innies? Is he going to side with Lumen? Right now, he's siding with Lumen because he needs his job. He feels he's very important. But the way Miss Huang is treating him, and the kind of the menacing nature of her character, and how everything plays out, to the way Mr. Drummond and Felicia act, and the board, it's kind of a struggle. It really does feel like a struggle. It feels like he's being kind of used, and he feels like they're like making fun of him a little bit, and kind of putting him in his place. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but I think Tramell Tillman is just fantastic in this second season. I think he's a standout, truly, to be fairly honest. And it'll be interesting to see. We'll see how it plays out. So I do appreciate that, Mark is very cautious of Helly after he figures out, after Irving does what he does, with the Glasgow block. And another thing I do appreciate is how Milchick he tries to explain why Helly did what she did, and it comes off as kind of taunting them a little bit. It comes off kind of crass and kind of fake, on the simple fact he talks about this kind of Swedish method of like the rulers, and how they like kind of went behind the scenes and played and see how they can help their people out. And it's just a ruse, on the simple fact that like Helly she came in because she was trying to figure out how to work the the crew, and how to make them better, when she acts like they're animals when she talks to Drummond and Felicia. They call out her BS, Dylan and Mark and stuff like that. They call her on her BS on that, or on the BS of that thing that Milchick talks about, because it's like she obviously was in there as a plant. She was in there to spy on them. She's not there to help them. It's not the way it works. And it plays real well, like I said, to the Felicia, Drummond, and Helly when they're talking, because they're like, you have to go in there and be hell you are, because Mark will not work without you. In the process, he's 85% almost finished. He's 85% finished with Cold Harbor, and we need him. And she's forced to go in there, which is really interesting because she is an Egan. She's a daughter of an Egan, and she's being forced by the board to go in there, which is very telling of a board situation where, any top tier executive who deals with the board, or share owners and stuff like that, stock owners and stuff like that, they may be the company owner or the people that started the company, but they're not in charge anymore. So Helly has no real option. She has to go so Mark can finish Cold Harbor, whatever that is. But what's great about it is when she goes in there and she talks to Mark doesn't really trust her, and that's honestly a true thing. It's a thing that really feels authentic, because are you gonna trust a person after they technically raped you in a lot of respects? They used you for sex. It's just like, and then they lied to you, and then like, is she still telling the truth? Like, it's pretty crazy to think about, like the level of like cautious nature that he has to be in. But he, at this point, he just doesn't trust her. It's just how it works. And watching him go, "Are you really Helly?" And then she's like, "I don't know, maybe you gotta just trust me." So for anybody to have to go through that situation and have to kind of be put in the process of like, is this really her? It takes a lot of effort and a lot of wonder about that. But it also leads into, we'll see what happens later on. But another small thing is how Rickon is just very oblivious to what he's doing. He's rewriting his book to how Lumen wants it. He is upsetting his wife to the point where she just walks away from him because he's so up his own butt. And I appreciate this scene because it really shows that, Rickon cares about his family. He wants his family, but he's so of one mind that he just doesn't get it. His head is so far up his butt, he just doesn't realize what he's doing, and he's changing his feelings for somebody else instead of being who he is, which is kind of what Lumen is in a lot of respects. Lumen distorts and they manipulate and they turn what somebody believes into something straight else and something else, and they take away part of who you are. And I think that's the purpose of that scene, is to show that Rickon is willing to sell his soul a little bit to make money instead of being what he is a guy who truly believes that he's as crazy as he is sometimes. He's a guy that really feels like he's trying to help people, but here he's just being manipulated by Lumen to create something that is not truly authentic. And I really appreciate that scene. It's kind of, they've been kind of not in this season a lot, so the scenes that they're in there, Devin and Rickon, is kind of nice. It's the same thing with like what has happened to Cabell. I mean, she has kind of disappeared from the like last couple episodes. Last episode notwithstanding because of what it was, but what has happened to her? That's just kind of the question. And then we get into the last part of this episode, or kind of the last part, where through the episode we've seen, of course, Mark kind of shifting, where when they go back to MDR and they see the 3 desks, the picture frame that is now missing Irving's picture in it kind of fades in and out quickly, and it's a thing that starts to happen to Mark throughout this entire episode, where once he goes back to his house, he's finally back home, Ragabi, he's taking, like, it's an interesting thing that he's taking this, like, this drink. I'm assuming it's to help him with the reintegration, but he's taking that. And when Ragabi comes back and he confronts her and stuff like that, brings her food, he's like really looking at all of his material, and he starts to kind of go back and forth between where he's at here and of course Severance. He starts to hear a voice, and that voice is the person that is Miss Casey, or Gemma. And Gemma is asking the questions she would ask in the meditation room, where he was like, your Audi does this, it likes this, it has this, the things that Gemma would say or Miss Casey would say when people need help. And so he finally fades back into Severance, the Severance hallway in Lumen. You would be confused by that. That's entirely a thing that would happen. But the funny thing is when he turns around, he sees Gemma, and she says something, but then it cuts to black because you have to keep the air of the mystery. That's what it is. But she says, she says, you will have something happen, and then it just cuts out. So there's something ominous of what that means. Who entirely knows? But his look and the fact that he has tears in his eyes, you know, and stuff like that, and just kind of the nature of what he's going through, and whether this reintegration is going to be successful remains to be seen. But I like the fact that once again we're left with another cliffhanger, but a cliffhanger where you could end the season and it would be entirely successful, to be fairly honest. So, I mean, that's pretty much the episode. There is a lot of things going on. There's a lot of, kind of continuations of like things and ideas, and the continuation of what happened after last week's episode. It really is an episode that is trying to spin a lot of plates, but is doing it so successfully that the plates never seem to wobble. And when they do start to wobble, the wobbleness is just kind of, we need the next episode to find out how much more we can continue the less wobbling and stuff like that. And so therefore it's just a really fascinating episode. It's a really fantastic like character study on the situation of loss and the situation of mystery and how people are treated and the menace nature of a company. And the fun thing about Severance is just how manipulative it can be and how crazy it can be, but also how down to earth and kind of audacious and like sweet it can take. Watching Dylan just kind of sit there for a moment staring at Irving, and then he takes out the little piece of paper has information on it that of course Irving talked to him about. I really love this episode. It's a fantastic episode. It really is. It really strikes the chord of like just genius writing and just genius storytelling, and I really hope it continues to land on all fronts and all points, and continues to have those small moments and continues to have those great moments, and continues everything. One moment is kind of crazy and then a moment's small. It really is fantastic. So anyways, that was a lot of talking, and I do apologize, but these episodes have a lot to talk about. So I really love this episode. I can't wait to talk about the next episode, which will be coming out soon in the week. And for my official score, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. I really do love this episode. I think it's fantastic. I think it is another winner, and I think it's one of the best episodes of the season or the series. I think it just continues this trend of like quality television writing and directing. So, but anyways, with that said, that is gonna be my take on Severance season 2, episode 5, which is called Trojan Horse. Thank you so much for watching. Comments below. What do you think of this episode overall? What are your theories? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. But thank you so much. If you like what you see on this video, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to fun's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, guys.